Sew with Monty. Today I'm going to show you how to put a rib neckline, a neckband, on a opening of a neck. This is pretty popular with t-shirts, but it can also be used with any stretch fabric that has at least 100% stretch factor, and I'm going to explain that to you here in a moment. But this is what we're going to be doing, applying this neckband. Now, this is the rib I've chosen. And what I'm going to show you in looking for a rib when you're trying to do a neckline, you want to pull and have memory and stretch factor. Now the stretch factor, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to find 5 inches on my grid, and I'm going to hold it like this. I want to be able to stretch this 5 inches and try to get it to stretch to 10 inches, which is 100% stretch factor. If I can do that, which this easily does, and then when I release it, does it rebound? So if it comes close to coming back to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which it did, it's about a ½ inch out, that's what you're looking for. You don't want a stretch fabric that comes out and doesn't rebound. You also want one that does stretch twice its size, because if it doesn't stretch that large, it's not going to be effective to do a neckline such as this. It doesn't necessarily have to be a rib, but it definitely has to have the stretch factor and the recall memory that this fabric has. So when you're in the store looking for something that's suitable for something like this, it's my visitor. Okay, you gotta go. You want to find something that has these qualities, stretch factor and memory. Okay, so let's go in and talk about our pieces here. So what I've done, I've cut up a little neckline sample. This is the front neckline and this is the back neckline. Here's the pattern pieces for these. And they're just little samples to show you the example. The first thing we would do to sew this neckline is we're going to attach the shoulder seams. And then we'll have a hole that we can sew the rib to. Now let me show you the rib bands. This one has been fit to fit the neck on the front. So see, you can see how it would stretch and fit in there quite nicely. And this one fits the back. Same thing, stretches right in there. We'll sew this up, shoulder seams together here, and it will be a tube, and we'll attach it to the neckline, fold it over and attach it to the neckline. Now what you're looking for when you do a neckline like this, let's go back to this little sample. You want the rib to be compatible to this outside edge. So when I'm sewing it, I would like the folded edge of this rib to be the same size as the edge of my rib here. And the same in the back. Now these aren't the exact same patterns, but you can kind of see that you want these edges to be compatible. This is the most important measurement on your rib. That's the length you're going to determine this by, is how big your actual opening is to be. So let's take the pieces. I want to take you over to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how to sew this up. I'm going to sew the shoulder seams and this up, and when I get it into a tube, then I'll show you how to do the rest. Now we have the rib sewn up into a circle, so it's tubular. I've sewed the 2 shoulder seams together. Now the notches on this rib are very important. See how it comes out, extrudes out? These are carrot notches, and you want to use carrot notches when you're on a rib, because if you cut into it, you could tempt it to run and get a run in your rib, so you don't want that. So when you're cutting out knit fabrics, you really should use the carrot notches that are on your pattern, or create them yourselves if they're not there. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got the neckline in a hole and I've got the rib in a tube. So I'm going to lay it over and I'm going to pin the center back, and I'm going to take the front notches and I'm going to pin them together. And then I'm going to pin the shoulders. So you pin all the landmarks on your neckline and your pattern, your rib. And then in between, we'll pull and pin the middle of these things. So first, the back, the front, and the shoulders get pinned together. Now if you have a bump on your shoulder, maybe you serged it, you want to push your serge seam, your seam allowance, in opposite directions so you don't have a knot there as you come across, so you don't have a big bump. Now let's see, we've got it like this. I'm going to take each section, I'm going to pull it, and then just take my fingers and hold the middle, align it again, and I'm going to pin the center of the stretch. See? And then when I sew it, I'm just going to pull it just enough to get the stretch to lay flat. I don't want to pull it beyond that, because then I could blow out my rib. So I don't want to pull it more than that. See, I just take from notch to shoulder seam and I pull it till they're together and they're taut. And then I just hold it with my fingers, align the edges, and then I'll pin it down. So you'll end up with about 8 pins in here. That's plenty. You don't really need to over pin it. So you can just pull it till it lays flat, and then when it lays flat, grab the center, align the edges, and pin it down. This way this will ensure your neckline doesn't get lopsided. So we're going to do it all the way around through here. See, pull, hold, and pin. And then we're going to go sew it on the sewing machine. So now let's go over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to sew this. So I've put the shoulder seam underneath my foot right here, and I've got them juxtaposed just a wee bit so that I don't have a big lump there. And I'm using my blanket stitch. You could do this with a serger very easily, but I want to show you how you do it if you don't own a serger. So we're going to come in here. We've got a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I've placed it so that I'll have just a little bit beyond my blanket stitch when I'm finished. I've got it on 8 for my blanket stitch. I've got it on the longest length I can get, which is a 4, and the width is 5. So I'm going to just start right here. The first thing I want to do is lock these two together, so I'm not going to stretch on it quite yet. I'm going to go about, a 1/4 inch without stretching it. Then once I have that, I'm going to pull gently on my neckline and my rib until they lay flat together. And then I'm just going to go around through here nice and easy, using my blanket stitch to attach them. And just always keep your fabric down under your foot so you've got control. When I get to my next pin, I'm going to stop, pull the pin out, readjust my neck, and I'm going to pull the next section. So you're sewing this in quarter sections. See, I'm pulling it a little bit there so it lays flat. Now I don't want to overstretch. I don't want to stretch my neckline and my rib out of shape because then it won't have a pretty shape. So I'm just going to go on down through here like this, get to the next pin, and then I'm going to pull it out. Now later on I can trim my notches off. I'm not worried about them right at the moment. I just want to go from pin to pin, straightening out, make sure my edges are together and that everything's laying flat. No overstretching on this. And then when I get to here, take this pin out. I have 2 more little sections to go. So I'm just going to go right through here. Now I'm at my shoulder again, so I need to be kind of cautious here so I don't end up with a chew. So always pay attention when you've got a lot of layers that you're not going to bog down and start chewing on your fabric. Lift your foot if necessary. And just keep lifting it if it starts to twist around a little bit. You want to keep this nice and clean and precise. So I'm just going to go all the way through here, get to my next pin. I'm almost there. Go all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and sew as I'm doing and finish this off, and then I'm going to show you the next step. See how nice that looks? This is such an easy treatment for a neckline, and it offers a lot of style. So now we have it sewn on. You can see the blanket stitch. I've used intentionally a black and white so you could see the difference. And it's cast off the edge as well as sewn it on. So it's virtually the same or very similar to a serger. The only difference is it doesn't trim the edge as it goes along. But I've trimmed the notches down, so I have a pretty good looking neckline in here. Now the next step, right now it's not that pretty because you can see it's kind of puckered up, but we're going to press it, and that's going to make an entire difference in here. So the next step is I'm going to pull it. Let me get my pins. I'm going to pull it and just hold it with my pins. So I'm going to pin it at the shoulder seam and at the seam, not along the edge of my rib. And then I'm just going to flatten it out until it's nice and flat, and I'm just going to go along through here, pinning it a little bit so that when I press it, it holds it flat. See? Just like that. Now I'm going to come in here and give it some steam and let it go relax. This will relax the stitch. It makes it look quite lovely. I'm just pulling it out so it's nice and taut. Don't want to overstretch this. Try not to overstretch when you're doing this or you'll deform the neckline. So now we're going to turn it around and we're going to do the other side. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pin the shoulder and I'm going to pin the front neck, making sure it's nice and flat. See, I want to make it flat like that. So whatever it takes to get it flat, that's how I want to pin it. And then I'm going to pin the last shoulder here. I don't care about the back, what's going on back there right now. I'm just worried about the front. I already did the back. So we're going to just press this nice and even right along through here and get it nice and flat. Now once you have this side pressed, you're going to turn it over and you're going to finish pressing it. So I'm going to turn it over like this, and you can already tell it looks better than it did. See how pretty that's looking? So now we're going to give it one last press, and this time I'm going to press it folded so that I can remold the neckline shape and get the little pin memories out of there where I've had it pinned. So I'm laying it nice and flat, and I'm just going to come along through here, and I'm just going to add some steam, press it all down, right along through here. And see, it just magically takes its shape. Isn't that nice? Now we'll do the back, shake all the lint off of it, and we'll do the same thing in the back, just pressing it nice and flat. The wonderful thing about this rib, it remembers where it needs to be. See, and there you have this lovely neckline. Sans all the little rib pieces. I have to shake it a little bit and get that out of there. But see how pretty that neckline looks? It looks just like a little t-shirt neckline. Very simple. All you need is a blanket stitch. You don't even need a serger to do this. And you can make a beautiful rib neckline.